Senate resolution by Senator DeFrancisco providing for the election of John J. Flanagan as temporary president of the Senate for the remainder of the 2015-2016 session.
Senator DeFrancisco.
I move the nomination of Senator John Flanagan. I just want to say a few things. There's no doubt that I had sought support from the senators to try to become the next leader. And I said from day one, as long as Dean Skelos is leader, I'm not in any way going to indicate what is going to happen thereafter, and I didn't because I didn't know. We had an open discussion. There was no indication of any hard feelings by one against the other or among the senators. And I can tell you, although we may have different followers, when we started this process, we don't have different followers thereafter. We all follow John Flanagan, and we'll do it as a unit because we, in our conference, are doing the right thing and making government affordable and trying to bring jobs to our communities and to make sure the right decisions are made, not the ones that necessarily are the most popular. I also want to just add, while all of you are sleeping in your beds, John Flanagan and I have been for many years working out at the gym. And to some of you, I believe it would be a good idea that you do the same thing. So, I know he's not only a great senator, he's a great man, and I'm proud to move his nomination.
Thank you, Senator DeFrancisco. Senator Lanza.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is my distinct privilege to second Senator DeFrancisco's motion to elect Senator John Flanagan, temporary president of the Senate. There's no one smarter, more dedicated, more hardworking in public office in the state of New York. His wisdom is really well beyond his years, although he's not as young as he looks. He has a firm grasp, as we all know, of the very complex and important issues that matter most to the people of our great state. And because of the work he's done both here, in this House, and in the Assembly over the years, he really has earned the admiration and respect from both Republicans and Democrats here and from one end of the state to the other. I can assure you, he cares deeply about the institution of the New York State Senate. He cares deeply about this legislative body and the checks and balances that are so important for us to govern and deliver results for the people we represent. Senator Flanagan, as temporary president of this state, I can assure you that this Senate and our state is in good hands. And so it is my honor to second the nomination of Senator John Flanagan as temporary president of the New York State Senate.
Thank you, Senator Lanza. Senator Laval.
Thank you, Mr. President. It gives me great joy, great pride to second the nomination of John Flanagan as our temporary president. John Flanagan has great intellect, great energy, and he has a wonderful, wonderful demeanor that brings people together, not only within our conference, but he probably has traveled this state more than any of our colleagues here, wanting to lend a helping hand, particularly in the area of education. John, your children are very proud of you. Your mother, Barbara, is very proud of you. Your dad, John Flanagan, who served in the Assembly, his buttons are popping today because he could not be more proud of you to not only have followed his footsteps, but also to have become the temporary president of the Senate. So, Mr. President, gives me great honor to second this motion.
Thank you, Senator Lavelle. Senator Robach.
Yes, Mr. President. Let me too rise to second this nomination, and I would agree what my colleague said. Senator Flanagan's always gone a little bit of an extra step, in my opinion, above and beyond his core constituency. And I could tell you, leading on education issues, you can't make this up. People from Rochester and where I live come here and tell me how impressed they are with the scope and breadth of knowledge, whether they're school board people, whether they're education people, because Senator Flanagan not only meets with his own constituency, but everyone's. And I won't say, I know some members don't even meet with their own constituents. This one goes above and beyond and really goes above that. So I think it does uniquely qualify him for this job because we are a diverse state and there's a lot of issues. And you need someone who has a lot of knowledge, energy, and willingness to listen to a lot of people. And I really feel that we've made a good choice here with Senator Flanagan to be that leader and that person, not only because who he is, but what he's proven he's willing to do through past performance. So happy to second that nomination, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Robach. The question is on the resolution. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? A show of hands has been requested and so ordered. All those in the affirmative, please raise your hand. Results?
Ayes 32.
The resolution is passed. Congratulations, Senator John Flanagan. Senator Flanagan, I would now ask that you step forward to receive the oath of office as temporary President of the Senate to be administered by the Secretary of the Senate, Mr. Frank Patience. Please come to the center of the chamber.
solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, and the Constitution of the State of New York, and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties, of the office of temporary President of the New York State Senate,
the office of temporary President of the New York State Senate,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
I present to you now the temporary President Majority Leader of the New York State Senate, Senator John Flanagan.
Much, Mr. President, and as much as I'm used to speaking in public, you don't always plan for a day like this. You certainly don't expect it, given certain circumstances, but my point is, I don't have a lot of things written down, but I do have things that I would like to say. First, I want to thank Frank Patience, the Secretary of the Senate, who I consider to be a very dear friend. He was kind enough to swear me in as opposed to swearing at me, which I deeply appreciate. But he's characteristic of many of the good people that we have working here in the Senate. We're very fortunate in that regard. I want to thank Tom Libas. I hope everyone continues to pray for his good health. He joined us in conference today via telephone, but he is convalescing in the beautiful sunny atmosphere of Florida, and I know he would like to be here, but please continue to keep him in his prayers. He's a leader in the state of New York, and we miss him. I want to thank Senator Skelos for decades of public service. This gentleman has devoted his entire adult life to the service of the people of the state of New York. He's done a fantastic job. He's had many, 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 many legislative accomplishments, and I'm going to only highlight one, which I happened to mention earlier. Many of our colleagues take credit for the enactment of Megan's Law a number of years ago. The real architect, the real author, is this gentleman sitting right here. And for any of you who have been here for the last couple of years, you see a transition. Dean's life came full circle by having grandchildren. He's got that iPad, and for anyone who hangs out with him, he'll talk to you, he'll send you emails and stuff like that, but he'll be like, look at this, take a look at these pictures. It's all about his family, and rightfully so, and that's something I respect and admire. So, Senator Skelos, thank you. I also want to mention some of our legislative leaders who are here and outside of this chamber. Senator Klein, you've done a great job on behalf of the IDC, working with our conference, and certainly with Senator Skelos. I look forward to that continued good, solid working relationship, because Lord knows we have plenty of business to take care of. Senator Stewart Cousins, who I have adored really for a long time. She's a lady in every sense of the word. She's an assertive leader on behalf of our conference, advances strong ideas. There are days where we'll agree, and hopefully there'll be a lot more of those than not, but she does a fantastic job on behalf of her conference. So, Senator Stewart Cousins, I have already had the pleasure of working closely with you, and I look forward to that in more detail. Outside of here, there is the New York State Assembly. And as Carl Hastie ascended to become the Speaker of the Assembly, I thought, boy, this is a real challenge. And he's a gentleman, he's well-liked, he's studious, he's being a lot more inclusive in terms of the things going on in the Assembly, and I think he's doing well. And that bodes well for the Assembly, and by extension, that bodes well for the people of the great state of New York. So when we look at this, it may be about us individually in our districts, it may be about our individual chambers, but at the end of the day, it's about the people of the state of New York and how we treat them. So Assemblyman Hastie, among many texts, you can imagine I got a bunch of texts. I got a very nice text from him before we came in here today. I have also had the good fortune and pleasure of working with the governor, who has worked very, very closely with our conference, and Senator Skelos. Governor Cuomo has done many, many, many good things in the state of New York, and I wish him continued success. And I always say, where we are in agreement, we should all stand up and embrace him and applaud his efforts. Where we're not, we have a corresponding ability to say, an obligation in my estimation, to speak to our differences, diplomatically, cordially, professionally, but with the people's business always in mind. So that, I think, is important. I look forward to working with him and have worked on a wide variety of issues that I'm sure will get now even more expansive. For those who are perhaps outside looking in, I think it's important to take more of a panoramic view and not necessarily look at the members who serve here, but all the people who happen to be in the back. These are some of the finest people that I've met in my life. These are some of the most dedicated people that you could possibly imagine. So while there is many, and there are many times and opportunities where people will denigrate public service and the work that gets done in government, I don't do that. Do we have our problems and our challenges? Yes, we do. But we have an obligation to speak highly and speak well of people who are doing a good job. So some of the finest people I've met in my entire life serve in government. We need to bring more people in, attract them in, keep them, because that's good for the state of New York. So to all the staff that work here on both sides of the aisle, and many people who I know very closely, I want to thank you for the work that you do, what you've done, and where we're going to go thereafter. Just a couple of things about the state. You know, it's interesting. The Republican conference gets accused of being sort of monolithic, no diversity. We don't, we all think alike. We're all cut from a cookie cutter. Just come to one of our conferences, and you can see that that is not the way it goes, just as people make suppositions or guesses about what happens in various conferences. Our conference is diverse, and I'm very happy to say that we have some extraordinarily talented people who are serving in that conference, just as I know it happens in the Democratic Conference. We have 7 new members of diverse backgrounds who have added greatly to the skill set and talent pool that we have in our conference. And I'm grateful for all their input and activity. So we have disparate interests and we have unity of interest. You know, in education, what do people want? Full public funding of education. We want the same opportunities for every kid across the state of New York, and yet we have our differences. There are regional differences that need to be respected, and I've had conversations with a number of my colleagues upstate, and I want to make it clear to them that I will do everything conceivable to respect our geographic distinctions and recognize that we are one state, no matter where the venue may be. I've been to Chautauqua, Jamestown, Plattsburgh, basically all over the state visiting colleagues. Heck, I've even been up in Andrea Stewart Cousins' district, hanging out with her and Senator Latimer, talking about education issues. So I know what it means to travel, but one of the coolest things about traveling in the state of New York is you get a chance to see how unbelievably great the state of New York is. Now, I don't know, Senator Gallivan can attest to this. One of my favorite places in the world is Letchworth State Park. It's a hidden jewel. It's called the Grand Canyon of the East in upstate New York. Check it out. Go there and visit. It's just one small example of the offerings that we have here in the state of New York. And I think of basic things. The Empire State. I think of our state motto, Excelsior, ever upward. Those are things that we should be striving for, and I know that's what we want to do in our conference every day. So I have listened to a number of my colleagues, and I'm not going to belabor on any of these points now. I know what it is to travel. I know what it is to be around. And I have had the good fortune of now being in the legislature 29 years, and I'm proud to be in public service. I'm going to make it very clear. I'm proud to be in public service. I still think it is a noble endeavor, and we should all be proud of the work that we do. I spent 16 years in the Assembly in a minority. I'm now in my 13th year in the Senate, 2 of which were in a minority, and I learned a lot being in both venues. So I had a chance to serve in a number of different capacities over there, but we talk about things in conference. You talk about the people of the state of New York. It's about jobs. It's about taxes. It's about economic development. It's about quality of life. And after that, I think everything can fall into place. What kind of structure are we creating to make sure that people have an entrepreneurial spirit and they can grow a business and make it thrive and survive and prosper in the state of New York? What's our regulatory framework like? What are we doing to create jobs in every part of the state? How are we investing in public infrastructure? Because that's a real investment. So those are things that we should be concentrating on, and yet I know that we have some very vexing issues to deal with before the end of the session. I believe people of good spirit and goodwill and faith who are willing to compromise, we can come to an accord on a lot of the things that are very important to people in every community across the state of New York. I'm going to close on 2 things. One, I'm going to greatly thank my colleagues for their support. It is humbling. It's making me a little nervous, but it is definitely something that I am so proud to be able to stand here before you and say that I have the opportunity to serve in this new position. Senators Addabbo and Avella, I don't know what we're going to do about the Education Committee, but we're going to have to figure something out. The last thing I want to mention is family. You know, when we're sitting in the members' lounge and other people, no matter what the venue, when you get right down to it, people care about their families, and I think most of us look at that and say, if I'm going to do this for my family, how do I make things better for other people's families? And we have a wide diversity of people here, people who are grandparents, people who are not parents, people who are young parents, and that's part of the great melting pot of the state of New York. In my own life, I have been very blessed and very fortunate to have grown up in a very solid, stable family, which I recognize not a lot of people have the opportunity to do. In my own life, I've had a great life as someone who is married. I have 3 beautiful children. My mother is still alive, thank God. She was here last week, 77, still working full-time, still full of vim and vigor and energy. And for all of you, some of you have no idea who my father was, but for those who are still here, when I got elected in 1986, I came in at a tragic time, but I had a proverbial leg up. My father was highly respected for his intellect, for his collegiality, and for his ability to get things done. So I've always used that as a benchmark, and you know, when I think about this, I'll just close and say I am so extraordinarily grateful, and if I can try to continue to be half the man that my father was, I'll be able to say I've done a darn good job in this position. So to all my colleagues, thank you from the bottom of my heart. We have real work to do, so let's get to the people's business. Thank you very much.